created to have some fun together, sharing and singing. So, join and enjoy.
Our love for opera brings us together. Thanks for being with us in this trip.
Yes.
Il dolce suono mi colpì di sua voce. Ah, quella voce mi qui nel cor discesa.
Yes, 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 everybody. I know that it's taking you over 15 programs to finally to say, well, when are these guys going to talk about Lucia di Lammermoor? Okay, I'm so happy that you talk about Olympia, the Queen of the Night, here and there, but we even spoke about a different role from Bellini. But when are you talking? We also have covered Donizetti in the past with La Fille du Régiment, but Lucia had never arrived to this program until today. And we all know that Lucia di Lammermoor is one of the greatest favorites of all times. Probably besides Mimi, Chocho Sands, of course, La Traviata, probably Lucia di Lammermoor could be in one of those top five most favorite roles. And it is sung by a different kind of soprano. So if you're expecting that the soprano who sings Lucia is going to sing also Madama Butterfly, you're completely wrong. Well, there are some sopranos whose names we are not going to provide. You have tried it in the past, which most 99% of the times with horrible results, because we are talking about bel canto. Maestro Donizetti was one of the most well-known composers within the bel canto repertoire, and Lucia di Lammermoor is one, hmm, probably the most achieved of his operas. What do you think, Katia? Could it be maybe his most achieved?
Yes, I think that it's an iconic opera, and Lucia definitely it's an iconic character. I think that probably most of sopranos have had in their minds to sing Lucia once in their lives,
And what
for
about
good or
you?
for bad.
But what about you? You dreamt in the past of singing Lucia? What was it ever?
Yes,
Yeah, you dreamt of singing like a crazy all over the stage with
I
your
love
gun.
to be crazy, and everybody knows that.
You said, "What? This girl goes crazy? Count me in. I'm all in. She's crazy. I mean, yeah."
Yeah.
And um, when it comes to this conversation that say, well, opera is not realistic, and we know because, as we are going to describe, a woman who is running all over the stage for 15 minutes, covered in blood with the blood of her newly acquired husband. Of course, it's insane. It's weird. Moreover, when you think of Joan Sutherland, the huge Australian soprano, almost 2 meters tall, uh, of course, with a splendid sound for this scene. Hmm, probably Sutherland's is the best, if not one of the most achieved versions of Lucia. Moreover, in the mat scene with Ardon Vincenzi and the Dolce Suono that we are about to start. Yeah, probably Sutherland could be. Or can you think of any other soprano who did a better job in?
Uh, well, mm, setting Natalie Dessay apart, yes, I would say that Madame Sutherland it's probably the best Lucia.
Yeah, and yeah, of course you're right. This well, we know that this likes to do things like like this. Yeah, she also turned off. Oh, I'm going to be running all over the place. Count me in. I'm killing a guy. Count me in.
Same
There.
vibes.
uh, High notes and the stuff for over 10 minutes. Count me in. So, And you know, guys, that we that in this program we love a lot the personality and the artist that Natalie Dessay has been for the past decade. So no surprise to that. And you also know that I'm not really a fan in many of the roles by John Sutherland, but of course, I have to admit that the quality of her technique and his understanding of the style of Donizetti is beyond almost pretty much any other version that you can find available. Her sound is very stable. Yeah, she does a very good job. But let's get started with the crazy lady running on the stage after having killed her husband. Many people, and I recall that you once mentioned it, Katia, that from her very first aria, when Lucia is singing by the water well, oh, il fantasma, it's like a premonition that she's already not in a good mental condition. So for many people say, well, that she ends up killing her new husband is not really a surprise. But if you pay attention, moreover, to these things that we are making fun of, the truth is that the story itself is horrible. I mean, you're a young girl, which of course you cannot believe once you see this 2 meters tall lady that is named Sutherland. But putting that aside, she's a young girl who wanted to marry, of course, the man she loved, but that does not match her brother's political interests. So she's forced into marrying a man she's not attached to, but she's forced into that. And this situation is revealed to the boyfriend of Lucia, who gets back right after she has gotten married, only to have one of the most spectacular scenes of the opera, by the way. The scene where he yells at Lucia, "Son tue cifre," and she has to admit, yeah, I'm the one. That's my writing. Maledetto, maledetto sia l'instante, where the tenor has to give it all, and most of the times it's a very poor result. To be sincere. But let me explain why. Usually the role here for the tenor is also for a light voice. So as we have shared in the past, a light voice is usually not powerful, is not a powerful sound. So as much as they try, if this is a small voice, when he has to yell "Maledetto," nobody believes he's "Maledetto, maledetto sia l'istante che," because you really have to feel the power. So many also are very poor interpreters. So if you are not a good interpreter and you don't have the voice, usually that part of the tenor is not very well covered, and then that's where the concertante starts, which is a very, very impressive concertante by Maestro Donizetti. And the soprano, because the sopranos always have to end an act with a high note. So what do they usually sing? It's not a high C. What do they usually sing in there?
Um, and eat?
I think it's a D, right? Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah, they usually sing a D just because it's not written.
because I can.
Because
Now
they
I
say,
will.
oh, I can give a D, I will sing a D. It's written, I don't care. I'm going to give a D.
Who cares?
Yeah, but the whole scene that we are coming from, it's very spectacular itself. And after that, nobody recalls the tenor, of course, and nobody recalls anybody else because after that impressive concertante, we are going to have, after just a few minutes where nobody cares about because everybody is waiting for the crazy girl to go on stage, which is Lucia, because at this time, this is the wedding night, so they have retired to do the stuff people do usually on the wedding night. But then somebody yells because they say, "Oh, Lucia is coming and something horrible has happened." And that's how she enters with a gown and her hands sometimes, yeah, also depending on the stage director, covering blood as well. And as we're about to start describing the scene, mm, well, before this is part one. this is such a long scene that we are going to have two separate programs. This is the first one. So the first program, this part is the one that I like. The second program, you're going to see that I detest everything that happens there. But now that I like it, I have also found, and I want to ask you, Katia, because we have also mentioned it in previous programs. You know that you have to be super concentrated. I know that for a voice like you, the tesitura and the ornaments are not really difficult. I know that you can handle them very easily, but the scene is long. The complete scene is super long. So even if it's not super difficult for a tesitura like you still have to think, okay, if I give everything now, there are 8 minutes coming when I have to sing a scene.
And I
And
will just open my mouth and nothing's gonna come out of it.
yeah. So in a way, you feel safe because in your case, there are many sopranos who really cannot handle the scene. But in your case, I know that you're comfortable with the ornaments, no super high notes, something that you can easily handle. But I know that you have to manage your resources because you say, I have to sing and I have to change the mood and I have to do this and I have to do that. It's it's like a super concentration because opposite to what you do in and this scene, this part that we're talking about, really doesn't have any repetitions. It flows and flows and flows and flows. Opposite to the other arias and caballetas where you know the construction, A, B, repetition, ornaments, taran, finito. Not here. There are not really repetitions. So you are evolving and building the scene as it is happening. And the state of mind of Lucia is what is for you? I really wouldn't like to describe because of course I will never be Lucia, thanks God. But what comes to your mind when you know you are the crazy girl on stage who just killed her husband?
If I would say that probably is one of, or probably the most difficult thing I have the privilege to face, because there are many obstacles in this race named Il Dolce Suono. Yes, it is a very long song. It's it's sung by an unstable mind person, so you have to reflect with your voice all these changes. Sometimes she's like laughing, but sometimes she wants to cry, and sometimes she's angered, but your voice at the same time has to express this but be stable in a technique sense. So it's complicated. uh there are almost spoken parts, but it has to sound in the same line. And believe me, girls, the ornaments and the high notes are the less of your problems. Really, it's a monster.
Because by the last 3 or 4 minutes, depending on the ornaments that you are going to add, the job is done. Now you can
Yeah.
flow on the ornaments and everything. But constructing the previous part and that people don't fall asleep for the previous 8 minutes while you have been working on this piece, it's it's difficult in many ways as you just described because you say or I think you have to ask yourself what is the sound that a woman who has lost the control of her mind sounds. So you say it is like happiness, but it is not like you are conscious of your
No,
own
of course.
happiness. You're not even conscious of your own sadness. It's like your mind has departed this reality. And what you see, because people on the stage, it is never described, but I think we can take a couple of minutes to mention it. People on the stage, the chorus and the other characters, they are sort of surprised with fear because of course seeing a girl covered in blood is never going to be a nice thing to see, so they are sort of afraid surprise, and at some point they feel shame for Lucia. Because now the girl they are seeing is not the girl who just married on stage a couple of minutes ago, couple of hours ago in real life, but it's not the woman they saw before.
The
They
last time,
saw the
yes.
last thing they saw is that she broke after she had to reveal the marriage to her former boyfriend. So, but it's like say it's a hard thing to face, but you still say, well, it's like well, it's sad, but a woman who has a broken heart. But this is not a broken heart. It's a woman who loses her contact with
With
reality,
reality, yes.
and that's Lucia. And when you were explaining the sound, and you have to do this and you have to that, and remember that it is bel canto. And as Katia mentioned, even if it is sort of spoken, you still have to sound within the same vocal line because it is not verismo. In verismo, you basically yell and speak and do things, but this is bel canto. So you cannot get out of that area because people are going to notice that Lucia is out of character. So with all those complexities in mind, I really don't know why sopranos want to sing Lucia.
I think that it is a kind of watching a horror movie because you are exposed to fear, but far away from the real dangers. So here you are crazy, but not, but yes, because you choose to sing something like that.
In a way, you are also sharing the same madness with Lucia because
That's right.
among many other things you chose to be singing, and also because since this is the most important scene in the complete opera, it's not the first aria, it's not really going to be the boyfriend at the end, it's really Lucia. This is the whole opera is built around this thing that we are about to see in detail.
Everybody's waiting for this part.
Everybody's waiting for it. So you know what happens on a stage. You only have the limmer light on you. The light is only on you. Everything is in darkness. And girl, go and do your thing. That's,
Yes. Oh my God, it's terrific.
and as we have mentioned in the past, knowing that you're going to be alone, because the orchestration here is also very, very light. You are barely accompanied by the sound of the orchestra. It's a very light orchestration. Maybe if you allow me the comparison, in sort of a Bellini way, there is very little, a very modest orchestration. And when there is more modest, moderate orchestration, it means that your voice is very exposed. That's what basically means. You're going to be exposed
Yes.
for the next 10 minutes or so, depending if you are cutting some parts of the complete scene. So I really don't know what would a soprano do if they lose their concentration at some point of these 10 minutes.
Kill
Uh,
yourself.
but let's get started. So the scene starts, this first part, with Il dolce suono mi colpì di sua voce. Ah, quella voce me qui nel cor mi discesa. In this mind that has departed our reality, if you ask me, I even think that this is probably the opening part is very difficult itself. Not, it's not very low, but it requires perfect pitch. Because if you don't sing the perfect pitch here, it's going to be a disaster after this. And also, it has to be believable when she says that I can hear the sweet sound of his voice. That's how it starts. After having killed a man, the first thing she says is, I feel like I can hear his soft voice. Of course, referring to the voice of the man she loves, not the man she just killed, the man who was her husband, referring to someone who is no longer there. Ah, quella voce me qui nel cor mi discesa. Ah, quella voce, that voice that spoke to my heart. It is not said, and maybe maybe we can explain it, Katia, because after il dolce suono mi colpisce la voce, quella voce me qui nel cor mi dice, this is never expected and never sung in full voice.
Please don't.
I know that you want to impress the public and say, hey, look, she's just starting with her high register and see how solid, but it is out of place. Remember that she's calling me qui nel cor mi. It is in a sort of a floated voice, sort of a fragile voice. You have to go for the diche sa.
And you can make a crescendo, but don't attack it with triple F,
Yeah, it is a
please.
very people think very wrongly that a crescendo means starting from a double P and growing up to a triple F, which is a horrible conception. And crescendo just means increase the volume. Doesn't really mean go to the most powerful sound that you can emit. In this case, if you're since she's even speaking to herself, il dolce suono. It look if there are for il dolce suono and even I mi colpì sua voce looks a lot like the way you could speak. You know that we speak with a usually with a variation of a third. That's usually depending on the kind of conversation or what you're saying. You usually, if you speak around the D, you usually go a little high to the E, sometimes a little go back to the C, and that's usually the average of the tones that we use in our
I
spoken
speak
voice.
around a G or an A.
And remember that, of course, it's not going to be the case of Katia, but for the rest of the mortals, we usually speak around. Well, it also depends if you're a tenor or a baritone, etc. But just to exemplify that, that's usually the if you allow me the expression, the bandwidth of the notes that we use when we speak. That's what gives you the key that she's basically speaking. So if she's speaking, it doesn't make sense that you go this because it's completely out of place. And
Indeed, here in my score, sorry, I have a diminuendo in the
well,
orchestra part. Not for the boys, but it makes me sense that if the orchestra is uh, making diminuendo, well, your voice should, or at least stay or increase just a little bit.
and I think that you mentioned it, I think that it's a good opportunity because, of course, the first thing that you have to do is understand the score. Yes, girls, believe me, the first thing you have to do is to understand the score, not imitate the singer that you prefer, because probably the woman that you are imitating has done a horrible thing, and so you will be imitating horrible things. So if you know how to read music, go and read your score, study your score, work on your score and emit the sounds that the score demands. Understand the mood, understand the character. And only once you have achieved all of that, go and add something. So if you're going to add this crescendo, you have to consider, oh, I am going to start very softly. And when I reach the peak of my crescendo, then I am going to diminish, following the example that Katia just gave, and probably the example of increasing and then shortly after working on diminishing the volume of my sound would work because I am going to close this phrase, the she, sa,
The.
like that. And it works, but you have to do how your voice, because uh, maybe I explained it. Oh, it's very easy. Just take it softly and then increase and then decrease again. But if you don't have a good diaphragm control, it's not going to happen. You're going to try because, and maybe you have seen it with your students, Katia, that for many people it is usually easy to increase the sound. You start like that. It is easy. But once you are up in the volume, going back down, it's never. So what they usually do is that they start strangling the sound here because they really don't know how to go back to diminishing to going to the diminuendo. So don't think that just because Ricardo said it was easy, yeah, go for the crescendo and then diminish the sound. It's going to be easy. It's probably going to be the place where you're going to commit a horrible mistake.
Yes, my teacher once told me everybody can yell, but to sing is a very completely different thing. Your voice, it's like a powerful horse, and it's beautiful to have a powerful horse, but it's very different to have a high school horse that can dance.
And that's
That's
why it is called bel
bel canto.
canto. That's why it is called like that, because you can have the skills, you can have the technique. You need to have the technique and you need to have good taste. Because otherwise, you're going to watch hundreds of videos on YouTube where many horrible things happen. After that, she says, Edgardo, io ti son resa, Edgardo, Edgardo mio. At this point, we know of this obsession of hers for the guy named Edgardo. Edgardo, io ti son resa, Edgardo, Edgardo mio. In her mind, she doesn't recall, or her mind is denying to accept that this guy is no longer going to be with her. In fact, it's very possible that it is this rupture, this separation, this conflict between the two of them, which provoked the madness of Lucia. Of course, we already said she already was touched by the beginning of the opera, singing by
She's
the well.
damaged.
She's already damaged, yeah. But we can say that the additional element that triggers the situation is the catastrophic ending of the previous act, something she could not handle, and so now her mind refuses to admit that Edgardo is not there and it's not going to be there. Sì, ti son resa fuggita son da tuoi nemici. And I find it uh, personally, I think it is super difficult to come from this mood. Fuggita son da tuoi nemici, fuggita dai tuoi because if you make it sound the, if you make the following part sound too playful, it sounds out of place. If you make it too heavy, too dramatic, it sounds out of place. So to find the right sound of these parts, because it's going to happen again and again and again, where Maestro Donizetti works on a gruppetti, ascending, descending, or trails or whatever, but they are, like in the middle of the evolution, and they have to sound correct in the middle of the evolution of what Lucia is suffering, because it's not going to be Olympia suddenly working on a gruppetto. it's since I know that because it happens, and I don't want to name Beverly Hills. Of course, I'm not going to say Beverly Hills, but she loved to add things that were never part of it. And at some point, when you're listening to her renditions, you say, "What is this woman doing?" Olympia took over, and now Olympia is singing this part because
Olympia is crazy, or
oh,
what's happening here?
maybe on the theater next door there was the Tales of Hoffman, and she got mistaken.
A
She's
crossover.
because if you sing it higher so that the group of notes sounds more impressive, it doesn't make sense. It really doesn't make sense. Play with the pitch of these groups of notes, these ones and the ones that are coming, and everything loses place. And I know that the Beverly Hills followers are going to kill me because of my comment, but I promise that one of the most horrible mad scenes that I have heard is Beverly Hills. Because when she starts doing that, or you say, well, now she's Marie from La Fille du Régiment, because now she's playing like that, and Lucia is not that. She's really not that. This demands a super well trained soprano and a very high achieved artist.
Yes. I would like to add that it's a difficult score also because it's tempting to add things that are not written, but it can lose the entire idea. When is too much? When I have to stop?
Because even in my scores, in my score, there is this note, a fret. That is something that sopranos like, afretando. Yeah, it's my invitation to go crazy on stage.
But that was not the point.
That was not the idea. You, you are, this is in fact part of her madness.
She's anxious. Dai tuoi nemici. But she's not playing.
No, she in fact doesn't have control of anything. Remember that we were mentioning she's sort of happy, but she's not conscious of her happiness, and she's sort of nostalgic, but she's not really consciously aware of that. It's the mind is gone and it's playing with all those many emotions, and that's why in this moment, dai tuoi nemici, and suddenly goes back to un Un gelo mi serpeggia nel sen. The previous idea looks like interrupted, and now she says, Un gelo mi serpeggia nel sen. It's like sort of an idea, sort of for a very small amount of time, like awareness of what's going on. Un gelo mi serpeggia nel sen. But suddenly, again, she's lost. Trema ogni fibra. Because with this small ornament, Donizetti again is reminding us that she is not in control of her emotions and her perceptions. Fibra vacilla il pie presso la fonte a meco tassidi alquanto. Of course, again, the soprano can say, no, 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 this alquanto is too slow, so let's add some magic here. But if you're still in the mood, trema ogni fibra, vacilla il pie presso la fonte, meco tassidi. Of course, not as long as I am going to, as I am pretending. Tassidi. Si presso la fonte, and again, as I was mentioning here, the gruppetti and the ornaments that Maestro is adding are here to remind us that Lucia is not in control of her mind. Me codacidi. Also, I don't know how do you feel about this thing that I'm going to share, Katia. It's like in blocks. Maestro Donizetti is like, yeah, flowing the idea, but suddenly cutting. Ma si di flows. Una idea ta 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 ta. The blocks are interconnected, but it's like every
Yes.
time he's adding these ornaments, the final syllable is like ending the block. This is the block. Ma si di pas.
Yes, because of course it has musically sense, but Lucia has no sense. So an idea and it finishes.
Yeah, she's not in,
An
she's
idea
not
and it goes. An
she's
idea and next.
it's not like she sat to the table drinking a coffee and saying, okay, let's reflect on what happened today. Oh yeah, I did this. Oh, this guy is gone. Okay, no matter what, drinking more tea.
It's
It's
not
not.
un bel di vedremo when where I'm thinking what happened and what's gonna happen. No, it's another kind of sadness. It's madness.
It's like ideas coming in groups, and she trying to grasp some of those
But in
ideas.
disorder at the same time.
Yeah, yeah. And Of course, there is a change in the mood because, of course, the soprano is going to say, "Well, this was way too slow. I'm so happy to see that there is an allegretto, an allegria vivace coming. Now we can speed things a little, but remember that you are always in the mood." And it is weird to say the mood when this is a woman who's really not in control of anything. But just hoy me sorge il tremendo, and maybe people you recall this part because uh, after this first block, these two blocks that we cover, then comes Hoy me sorge el tremendo fantasma. And you know, because also of the orchestration that something is happening. Fantasma ne separa, ay me, Edgardo, Edgardo, il fantasma. In this part, of course, you feel like, because of the voice and because of the orchestration, you know that something is happening. But you also see that she's really completely out of the reality because there is no ghost there. I mean, she's in the middle of the guys who attended the party, so there is anything but ghosts. The only ghost that there is in her mind,
Yes.
and she seems. Look at what she says. Hoy me sorge il tremendo fantasma, this specter, this ghost is arising, e ne separa, which means Edgardo. Here comes a ghost that is putting us apart. Hoy me, ay me, Edgardo, Edgardo, still speaking to Edgardo who is not there. In this delusional state of mind, she's still calling Edgardo, Edgardo. Ah, il fantasma. Even in my score, she says terrified. But remember that this is not a terrified as in verismo. It is not going to be Joconda
He's
Jill.
beautifully terrified.
It's beautiful terrified. Which again, it's easy to say, but not that easy to do. If you tell a student, okay, you're going to do this part beautifully terrified, of course the person is going to start thinking, and what does it sound like? Like Lucia. Il fantasma ne separa. Again, the ghost separates us. As for what could be your recommendation for this one after il fantasma ne separa? There is actually no notation of forte, fortissimo, or triple F, but
No,
what are your
but
thoughts on that one?
well, it's not reading a kind of notation, but here where Lucia says Edgardo, Edgardo, il fantasma, I indeed I do have an F, and it makes me sense because you don't have to give it all still, but it's a kind of gel in her mind. She's seeing the ghost, so yes, in this case, she's screaming.
Because we're saying that she's not in this well in the people or on the stage reality, but she's living or her mind is trapped in another reality. And
Mhm.
in that reality, Edgardo is there, Edgardo is real, and the ghost is real. In her mind, the horror is real.
Yes.
And the music by Maestro Donizetti helps us understand that because when you hear the music, il fantasma ne separa, you listen to the orchestration and you for a moment you are invited to her world to share the same horror. And that is why I say this scene by Maestro Donizetti is a masterpiece. It's a true creation because remember we're speaking of the 1800s, early 1800s. And Maestro Donizetti really knew how to build drama. And if you recall this, if you have heard the seasons of Parlons de, no, no Parlons de, when ChatGPT tells us about the composers, I share with you that from my perspective, Maestro Verdi built very interesting or very achieved dramas because in a way he learned from Donizetti. This scene by Donizetti, just having a woman suffering everything here in her mind and then inviting people to join her for a second in this horror, is a masterpiece. It's tremendous because we also have to mention, we haven't really been that clear, that the voice, we said not every soprano can sing Lucia. Sorry, girls. Even if you don't have the high E for el spargito amaro pianto, even
That's not the problem.
that's not the problem. The problem is that the bel canto does not require full, powerful voices because this is usually sung. Hmm. I don't even have the words how to describe. As a role like this is sung like not leaning, maybe some people are going to kill me. Not re- I'm not. I don't want to say that it is not, of course, a floated head voice sound, but it is certainly not a breast supported voice. It plays somewhere because it is not a falsetto voice, but it is
It's
sort of. How did you describe the sound of Lucia? You know what I'm referring to, right?
Yes, before the program I was vocalizing and I was paying attention to many details that I have left in the past because I haven't sung this recently. And I say, well, what's the point of this? She's living her own reality. So I think that the point here, the key is to sing within you. It's not a falsetto, but you have to sing inside of yourself. And of course, that with a good technique, you will have a projected sound anyhow. Anyway, but you can say like uh, 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 um for example, what was looking for il fantasma. You can sing to the front as usually we advise as singer and as teachers. Il fantasma, il fantasma, il fantasma ne sait pas. It's not ne sait pas, ne sait pas. And it's not a dark sound because it's not too covered and it's not in falsetto, but I'm singing inside.
Yeah, it's really complicated to explain, but
I already got crazy too.
but that's it. Once the soprano finds that's the sound that Lucia needs, that's when you say, yeah, she understood Lucia. Because if you're singing in the typical requested projection of the sound for opera singers, Lucia is no longer Lucia. She could be Violetta Valery or anybody else, but that is not the sound of Lucia. Lucia is somewhere between reality and internal madness and the projection of the voice. And it's hard because this is a very long role for a soprano. The first act, when she's singing her first part, when we know that she's going to get más reñaban el silencio, which by the way I liked a lot, reñaban el silencio, then a little intervention of the tenor and then go for the duet. If you listen to the complete duet is also super long. And then comes the following act, the confrontation with her brother, and then comes, the understanding that she's going to be married to a woman she doesn't love, and then she's going to meet a new husband, and there is going to be the marriage, and then the confrontation with Edgardo, and then her spectacular wrapping up, and now she's already alone now, alone with her madness. So it's really, as we call it, a tour de force. It's really a tour de force for a soprano. It's really a lot. Moreover, when you know that if you haven't met the right sound for Lucia, you're going to be tired after the first act for sure. Because this sound, it is very obvious here in Ardon Lincenzi and the whole scene, but this same sound comes from Reñaba en el Silencio. If you think of Reñaba en el Silencio, it is not also sung in the expected, imposted, projected sound that we know. Still keeps some sort of inner dialogue because when she says Reñaba en el Silencio, it's really not telling anybody, it's telling herself. Reñaba en el silencio. And when you think of Reñaba en el silencio and you try to wrap it to the parts we are talking about now, it makes sense. Say, yeah, this is a continuation of what we saw first. It's like Reñaba en el silencio is the prelude, musically and psychologically speaking, of what we are talking about now.
That's
Okay,
right.
so sorry, you want to add something?
No, totally agree. So we can go on.
Ok, so qui ricopriamo a pie dell'ara, sparsa e di rose, and then that's when she's about to lose her mind again, because her idea of horror and the ghost and Edgardo, qui ricopriamo Edgardo al pie dell'ara, so they are going to look for protection close to the altar. Sparsa e di rose un'armonia celesti, di non ascolti. I find it horrible. I am putting it. I find it horrible or frightening for a soprano because when you go di non ascolti, when you have to play with these notes that of course require you to sing in a perfect pitch so that it sounds awful. Maestro Donizetti says, I am going to challenge the soprano in the length, but I am going to challenge her in these small episodes where she thinks she can do anything she wants, but she can't. In fact, where she's more restricted.
It's a trap.
It's a trap. It, of course, not in the way Mozart does, because we have explained it many times when we talk about Mozart. You exaggerate in Mozart, and you notice that you exaggerated. You add too much volume to Mozart, and you notice that there is too much volume.
Because he already exaggerate for you.
And in this part, in Donizetti, is the same. You exaggerate the ascolti, and people are going to realize that the woman on the stage doesn't have an idea on what to do with this group of notes. So before you attack them, you have to know where you're going psychologically and musically speaking. And I think it's horrible. To be I mean, alone on a stage, facing something that looks innocent and easy to do, but if you overdo, exaggerate, took longer, add notes, people are going to realize that you are out of the role of Lucia. It's like, like you're going to be on a stage with zero liberties because if you exaggerate something, people are going to see it or are going to hear it. I find it horrifying because, Yucate, you know it better than me. Singers usually hide between the exaggeration, behind exaggeration, or behind the orchestra, or behind anything, so that they are not exposed to the limitations of their sounds. So to know that you're exposed with very low orchestration, everybody looking at you. Oh, I'm going to say something that people who were about to kill me because of what I said of Beverly Hills are going to kill me twice. Because personally, I think that she exaggerated and transpolated the notes because she really didn't know what to do in these parts. She needed to face the limitations of her voice
Yes.
and to sing the madness in Hamlet and other things are, in a way, easy. But face in not your most comfortable area of your voice an innocent group of five notes still in character, it's difficult. If I don't want to be exposed, what do? I add notes, I transpolate, I speed it up, and do many things so that people don't realize that I really don't know what to do with this part.
Yes.
Sorry, guys, those are my thoughts on why Beverly Hills usually change this.
admit that once I did it in the past, but not with this aria. I was singing "O del mio dolce ardor," and I have EDC
Hmm.
kind of that, and it was not working. But I have like 5 or 6 months singing, and my teacher said, "Let's translate it," and I sang it higher. So yes, if you don't know what to do, obviously you will set what you are finding in the score into your comfort zone. That's the truth.
Then after this allegro, allegro vivace, allegretto, we go back to this sort of slow part because we go back to the andante. A Lino suona di nozze. Now, for some reason, her mind is bringing her to the fact that there was a wedding. So, il Lino suona di nozze. A Lino di nozze. Il rito per noi s'appresta, o me felice. In her mind, she's getting married to Edgardo. Apparently, she has lost any memory of she marrying the wrong man. And so her mind is replacing that fact for the delusion that she's getting married to Edgardo. And she again says twice, Edgardo, Edgardo. And then comes the opportunity, probably of one of my worst experiences in the opera. Because maybe Katia can show us what is written so that you can compare. So, what you hear in the recordings, because you know what I am talking about. You know.
I do. Well, for example, this cadenza, it's written and it's also an suggested one. Uh, but it's like the case of the Queen of the Night, that she's not laughing because she's happy. She's laughing because she's crazy. That's different, completely different. If you have ever had a chance to see a person that it's not in full control of her mind, the laugh is totally different and it's creepy. So it has to sound beautifully creepy.
Again, beautiful. And personally, I think these ornaments, these cadenza, is again also difficult, and not only technically because the first part of the cadenza is probably not in the most comfortable zone to start playing. But again, if you do it way too fast and out of mood, then you think Olympia is back on the stage. But remember that it's not Olympia or the Queen of the Night going back on stage to sing 60 notes per second. It's not that. It's Lucia, and remember that you're singing it in andante. So that gives you an idea that you're not going to start doing fireworks. But since we know that sopranos are trained to do all the ornaments quickly, and the ta 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 ta, and in this, yo go up, you dance, and then you do this, you do that, it easily catches you into the idea of doing it like that. And it is, yes, it's a cadenza that needs to be sung fast because look at the number of the notes, but you don't have to seem that rushed because
No,
you are not doing that. It's not the Queen of the Night in her first aria.
it's not the end of Lacme.
It's not the end of Lake May. It's almost not even in the middle of the mad scene of Lucia. So you still have many things to go, and as we have mentioned, you have to be very. You really needed to have planned ahead on what you're going to do and what actually works for your voice. because notice that after the cadenza, then the composer slows you down on purpose. Look at the number of notes and then how Donizetti has slowed you down for with purpose. Me felice. Again, wrapping up an idea. You remember that we have mentioned that the way it is constructed is that there are this expression of idea, ornaments, and end of the block, and that all the end of the blocks are like this felice end of the block. Another
Mhm.
idea. O gioia che si sente, o gioia che si sente non si dice. Again, look, ornaments, and after the ornaments, you're slowed down by the composer. End of the block. Felice. Boom. End of the block. And then, well, I'm not sure if you would like to add something to this final part. Well, this wrapping up of the first part of.
Yes, I think that it has to sound. Yes, it will bright because if you are trying to sing this, it's because you have a light voice. I mean, you're not a spinto or something like this. I hope.
Well, well.
Please don't. But try to keep the idea to sing inside of your head, to sing for you to sing at the back. It's not in falsetto, but it can't. It's an intimate situation because in her mind she's just with Edgardo,
But he's not there, and she's not really
but he's
aware.
not there. But in her imagination, she's sharing or experimenting an intimate moment.
And I know that all people are waiting for this block ornaments block, etc. I know that people are just waiting for the part of the ornaments, but if you pay attention to the to what she's actually saying, you really feel shame for her.
Yes,
You
it's
see,
cringe.
she's a young woman who really didn't manage to marry the man she loved. She's a woman who was forced for political reasons to marry another man. Probably she didn't detest him, but certainly was not the woman she loved. She already had a weak mental state. And when everything is broken, she loses contact with reality and thinks of ghosts, thinks she's at the altar marrying with the man she loved. But it's not happening. That's not really what is happening. And people on the stage, I mean, the people at the party know that that is not really what is happening. All they see is a woman covered in blood saying all these things. And so it starts the other part because we're still in the first part.
I suggested 3 programs.
Yeah, we have to confess that Katia suggested 3 programs because this is super long, and it starts with Ardon l'incensi, splendon le sacrifici, splendon into. And let me see if I can find it and put it. No, it's going to be difficult to show it on the screen. The mood now is a little. Hmm, try to put yourself in the shoes of a woman who has lost her mind and now starts describing Ardon Vincenzi, that is uh, uh,
She's describing the stage where she's getting married
yeah,
to
she's
Edgardo.
describing
She's describing the wedding.
she's describing a wedding, and that's why she sounds in a sort
Of
happy,
dreaming.
a dreamy happiness that the
Yes.
scene of her marriage is taking place with Edgardo. That's why she sounds like splendon le sacre facci, splendon intorno. Qua il ministro. Of course, there is not a priest, but for her, in her mind, there is this priest arriving saying, "Oh, here is the guy who's putting us together as wife and husband. Porgimi la destra, oh lieto giorno. Oh lieto, al fin son tua, al fin sei mio. Finally, I am yours and you are mine." In her mind, in her lost consciousness, in her lost mind, they are really getting married. She's really extending the hand because in her mind, the Edgardo is there to embrace her, to kiss her, and to be a husband with hers. In a way, I could say that at this point, this is sort of pathetic because you
Yes.
really say there is no coming back for Lucia. I mean, she really lost it. She's now, of course, this is an evasion of reality, an evasion of happiness, an evasion of something that her mind is completely making up, but that didn't happen, and now over, it's not going to happen, no way.
Never no.
And for that reason, you feel sort of poor Lucia. I mean, that's what she really wanted. She really wanted all this to happen with Edgardo, not with the guy that her brother married to her. So even though she's saying it with sort of delusional, dreamy happiness, in the bottom of the message is that it is immensely sad because you know that's not what happened, and that's why some sort of emotion touches you also and say, "Poor girl, poor Lucia." A me ti dona un Dio. So God gave me to you, or God gave you to me. At the end conveys this message. God put us together. And for the first time in this part, the choir starts singing Abi in si crudo stato, which sort of means, oh my God, this woman has completely lost her mind. Of course, in a very discreet way, but still,
Very fancy and alien way.
yeah,
But that's so yeah.
Beautifully saying.
Because it's bel canto.
Because it's well canto and everything is beautiful. Even even when you kill somebody, when somebody is crazy, when you're stabbing someone, but it's always beautiful. So they know this woman lost her mind, but is still saying it. Beautiful, beautiful sound of the choir. Ogni piacer più grato. And maybe here, I should interrupt my description because we start having ornaments all over the place.
Oh yes.
And this is how it has evolved. The first part that we described in detail, we said sort of spoken ornaments, end of the block, period. Another speaking or describing the back, ornaments, end of the block. And now the structure has changed. As soon as she starts describing the marriage, the construction Maestro Donizetti changes. And now he's adding ornaments all over the place.
Try to count how many notes you have to sing.
But you still, uh, I don't know how you picture it in your mind, but Lucia has two peaks in this scene of this super long part, which I think there is no high note written, and it is usually sung Hadi or chiedi. No, we're going to it here. Well, this part, the sopranos usually add their lovely high note, but it's not written, and that's usually the peak of the first part. But after, in the Spargi d'Amaro Pianto, you're also having another peak. So for the sake of making them nervous. Because you know when you're singing your spectacular part, you know that you're expecting one high note or one rapping, but here you need to have two very good rappings of your scene. And yes, you're happy because now you're adding ornaments, but you cannot fall out of control or do too much, because if you do, you will arrive exhausted to your high note. And as in the case of the very well known recording of Renata Scotto,
Oopsies.
Renata Scotto does a fairly good job, but when she reaches her peak note, people say, the sound is too pushed. You already notice she's tired. You already notice she's not comfortable. It's I was going to say it's going to sound disrespectful, but it's going to sound like like a squirrel yelling at the end of Ardon Vincenzi, because you don't feel comfortable with her sound. If people here love Renata Scotto did a lot of beautiful things, but not that very famous recording. not
Not
not that
Lucia.
final, not that final note in the Ardon Vincenzi in Lucia. And that gives you a perfect example of how a well achieved, mature soprano can have trouble at the end of the scene. Well, she hasn't finished. Spargi Damaro Pianto still to come. But you really see how you can get in trouble even if you have sung in the most famous opera stages. That's a perfect example of don't follow her example. Don't do what she did.
She's an example of what not to do.
Exactly, exactly. So maybe me posting the detailed description here. How would you suggest? How would you go about these many things? Because in fact, this is where the ornaments, where you can basically close the score and start doing whatever you want.
Well, in this part that it's the middle part, uh, the flute starts to make an interesting duet with the singer. So I think that probably the most wise thing to do here is to imitate the flute in the sense of a delicate sound, a flouted sound. Um, the flute is not. Um, it doesn't sound like a very bright sound. I mean it's a metal instrument, but it sounds more sometimes like a wood instrument. So try to copy that idea, because if you do something like La vita noi la vita noi, no, you're pushing too much. La vita noi la vita noi sarà Vergine clemente, clemente un Dio, la vita noi. It could make it easier.
But mm, I would say the disadvantage here for the soprano is that if her sound is not very clear, it's going to be very obvious when she has the flute by her by her side, because you know that this wind instrument is very pure in his sound. It's clearly detectable, uh, the central note and the harmonics beside it. I would say it's a perfect to a it's close to a perfect emission of a sound. So if the voice of the soprano does not have that clarity, that stability in the pitch, once she starts singing along with the flute, it's going to be super obvious. So, word of warning, girls. If you want to go Lucia and you know that your sound is not stable, maybe just adhere to Reñaban el Silencio and don't go still for this mad scene because it's going to be super, super obvious. At some point, people can think or consider that the soprano is either competing or playing with the flute, but you only compete when you know that you are similars, and you only compete when you know that eventually you can win. But when the sound of the flute is very clear and stable and your voice is not, there is a clear winner and it is not you, it's the flute. So, so really, really think about it. I don't want to discourage you in studying the role, but face reality that the second part that we are going to be having in a month, the second part is going to be super easy compared to the super
Yes.
extended journey that you have pressed. I was thinking of this very famous recording of John Sutherland, which we said it's a very well achieved Lucia. And when she closed the score and said, "Yeah, I'm going to do whatever I want on the stage," I have to confess that at some point I said, "John, it's too much already. Stop it, please."
Yes.
I mean, we know that everybody loves to see the virtuosism of a singer, but you also need to know when to stop. And that famous recording, along with Alfredo Kraus at the Met 1981, 83, I believe,
Kinda.
she added way too many ornaments to be.
There are too many ornaments. Indeed, it doesn't need anything else.
But we know that her husband, Mr. Boninch, also was a very bad influence on her, and he told her that it was a good idea when in fact it was not a really good idea. So part of the blame is on Mr. Boninch. But putting apart that, that scene in the voice of Sutherland is also a very good example of endurance, because I say there are way the ornaments took too much time, but consider that she had already sung the complete scene, and you listen to her sound, and her sound is not affected at all.
No, no,
It's like
my
she just
respect.
started singing a minute ago, and that we must recognize.
Yes.
It's to be that stable in the quality of your sound, to be that stable on the emission after having been singing for more than 8 minutes, it's super difficult to achieve.
Yes.
She doesn't look tired. Still, the sound is right. Still, the pitch is there. Still, the control of the diaphragm. Everything is there. I don't know how she did it. Maybe she sang Lucia every day in the morning, or I don't know what she did
While running.
while running. I don't know. But that's when you know that a singer controls her instrument.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
amazing, even if there are way too many notes in that final part.
We have said many times that she lacks of emotion,
She lacks of
but who
emotion.
cares? But she was perfect.
So if you want to copy someone, as we said in the beginning of the episode, make sure that at least you are copying the right woman. If you want to copy someone, copy Sutherland.
Copy her.
Copy her, yeah, but take
Please.
her as the point of reference. Don't go for many other recordings whose names I gave one during the program several times. Don't copy that woman. No, please, never. Not for Lucia. Maybe for other roles, but not for Lucia. Absolutely not. Um, because moreover, if you're even if you're just studying and not yet a professional singer, music always deserves respect, and part of that respect comes from admitting at this point in time this is too much for me, and maybe it's going to be too much for me even in the future.
Yes.
So don't be disrespectful. That would be my request, please. Way too many horrible recordings around Lucia. Please stop it. Make it stop. Um, But if your voice is a good fit for Lucia, this could be like your professional exam. If
Yes.
you're able to sing it at your professional exam, then you know you have achieved something. Final thoughts, Katia, on this part of the math scene?
Oof, there are many, many things here to study, not just the plenty of little notes that are written here. There are many of background work, try to to understand states of mind vocally. So it is, like I said at the beginning of the program of the episode, for me it is the most challenging thing I've ever faced for many reasons.
Yeah, even if you consider, because go back to those horrible, ignorant comparisons of, oh, the Queen of the Night is the most difficult role for a soprano. If you have the F,
Yeah,
it's not.
don't give me that now.
We already explained in the past that it's not easy, of course, but it's not the most difficult thing.
And probably you shouldn't sing it
Probably you
either.
shouldn't sing.
but but beginning it's shorter. Uh, no, this is complicated.
Yeah, you barely sing 2 minutes and something with the Queen of the Night. Yeah, it's demanding, but it's only 2 minutes. But be on a stage singing for over 8 minutes. Do this, do that, stop, develop the idea, sing internally, control yourself in the ornaments, go back to the emotion. It's too many things to remember. It's
Yes.
and that's why we are addressing that in our part one. That, as I said in the beginning of the program, this is the part that I like from the medicine. Next episode, we're listening or we're giving our comments on the horrible second part that I detest of the medicine. But I will provide my comments in a month. So let's keep it happy, keep it nice, keep it with admiration for the great scene that Maestro Donizetti created. Something that you would like to add or to sing, Katia, to wrap up?
Yes. My moment has arrived. I will sing the end of this part.
I have good news and have bad news for you. Which one do you prefer?
The bad one.
We couldn't hear you. So you'll have to repeat that part. I'm sorry. I'm not sure if maybe the microphone got covered with something
Probably, yes.
because we couldn't hear you.
Okay.
Except for a couple of notes, we could barely hear you. So I will have to. I know that sopranos don't like to do any beats. We know that they detest to be
I
called.
hate to expose myself like this.
So please, 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 for our audience, if you could repeat this part as the microphone played wrong on ourselves. So this was our episode for Lucia di Lammermoor. Thank you very much, everybody, for having followed us, and see you in a month to talk about part two of the medicine. Thanks, everybody, and bye bye.
Bye bye.
You can follow our channel for the latest updates and more content. Opera will love singing, in just one word. Link in the description of the episode.